right, I'm going to go ahead and get going today. Really excited to be here. What a great event already. We're going to talk today a little bit about embracing event modalities, some lessons learned from some of our customers. So what are we going to cover today? I'm going to tell you why I'm here, why MEETYOO's here in just about 1 minute. I promise that's it about us, because we really want to talk about what we mean by event modalities and then get into some specific examples from some of our customers. So it is nice to meet you. Who are we? MEETYOO is a webcasting, virtual, and hybrid, that dreaded H word, provider built in Germany since 1999. What sets us apart? There are lots and lots of platforms out there. What sets us apart is how we look. We look different. Skift Meeting says that about 80% of virtual event platforms look and feel and act like websites. We've been on tons of them. We are amazing 3D designs rendered into 2D. They look different. So what we find is attendees are actually invited to connect differently. And our customers tell this it works again and again. We also are 100% managed service. So it's awesome. You don't have to learn a new platform. We do all the heavy lifting so you can focus on content, audience, sponsors, the things you really want to do. And we'll engage with you on an event by event basis or even just a single webcast. So why am I here? I've been doing this for about 15 years at a variety of different leadership positions for different platforms. So I've been doing this well before the pandemic. But I'm actually here to learn from you because I'm already seeing a ton that I can learn from the in-person world, and I'm excited to get to talk to you today. So what do I mean by event modalities? So of course, it's a method, a manner, a technique, but really it's what we already know. It's in person, it's virtual, it's both. It's that dreaded H word, hybrid. We shouldn't be afraid of it. We shouldn't try to say, oh, it's going to be super complicated. There's so many ways that you can reach your audience and really connect with them where they want to connect with you. So let's take a look. It can be, this is my lovely graphic, pretend that's a convention center. So it can be a big convention, physical only. That might be the right thing for your audience, for your association, for your goals. Awesome, do that. Or you can, of course, do what we're doing today. So we've got the in-person event here. It's awesome to have 3,000 people, tons of energy. I'm a hugger. I'm so excited to see people in person. But we've got a really strong audience on the Notified platform. They're able to watch the keynotes. There's unique content for them. So we're really able to see the two modalities work together. You can also think about doing a large in-person event. And as Julia Solaris likes to say, right, it's like, don't think about hybrid as an event. Think about it as your strategy. So you can do a big in-person event and surround it over the course of the year with a variety of webinars, small regional in-person events, big virtual events. You get a lot of choice. And this last picture is just a little bit of everything. So you can do a mashup and you can do anything you want. What I love about where we're at right now for events is event professionals, marketers, you have power. You have choice to, again, I'll say it a lot, meet your audience where they are. So let's talk about a few customers. First, Conferences for Women. They are the nation's largest network of women's conferences. They do 4 different conferences: California, Massachusetts, Texas, and Pennsylvania. Pre-COVID, 100% in person, 10,000 plus people showing up on site at a convention center, very regionally focused. Of course, 2020 hit, they had to go virtual only. They really excelled at it. So they did amazing for 2 years of virtual only. 2022 season, which goes through their California conferences in March. They did 3 in the fall. Their current season, they went back to in-person, but there was no way they were going to give up their virtual, and I'll show you some of those numbers as to why. But a really nice strategy. They had the in-person event on one day. The virtual event was the very next day. 2 different agendas, 2 different strategies. If you bought in-person, you got virtual, but they called the virtual event Conference Anywhere. Really, really nice strategy. I'll share some of their learnings. I'll also talk about a company called ADAN. They are a network by and for Afro-Germans and Africa-interested students and professionals. They are, again, focused in Germany. They do an annual career fair in person, and they also did it virtually. And it's really about promoting diversity and connecting the community with employers in Germany. Really awesome job, and doing it hybrid synchronously was exactly what they needed to do. And then I will touch on the DES program. So we were the host for the virtual only DES conference that happened in early October. And I'll share a couple of points from that as well. So first, a couple of kind of general learnings that hopefully we all are aware of. So first lesson, audience parity is a myth. I really hope that nobody is trying to deliver the same experience to your virtual and your in-person. I see some people nodding. Thank you. At the very beginning, everyone said, we've got to make it equal. It's not going to be. Your audience is showing up where they want to show up, and they don't expect it to be the same. So again, embrace your audience where they are. And you don't have to do it all. You know your audience. You know your goals. You know your budget. We'll talk a little bit about budget, but really, you know the best way to engage with your audience based on what you're trying to do and what you can afford. If in-person is it for your association and everybody's going to be at that conference, awesome. But if you know that you have really gained membership, reached more people at an organization, changed the way your membership engages with you, then you're not going to give up virtual. You know the way that's going to work for your audience. So I will say, if inclusivity and diversity aren't among your goals, virtual is a must. And some of our customers have seen this really play out. So we talked about the ADAN Career Fair that happened again in October. They had it on site in Frankfurt, and they had it virtually. They had about, it was 400 people in person, 600 people virtually. So about 50% more attended virtually. They had about 30 sponsors. They, of course, met their goal of reach because they added that virtual component. They streamed everything live into the virtual platform. And I think what's really important to note is their CEO said that the energy they created, part of it was the excitement and the energy and really getting the word out about their mission. That extended from the in-person event to the virtual event. So it really worked for them to do a synchronous hybrid event very successful. And I think another great point, let's talk about the Massachusetts or the conferences for women as a whole. But this is a screenshot from our map of attendance, just in the US, of course, but they had attendees globally. So keep in mind, it's the Massachusetts Conference for Women. They went back to in-person. It is a regional conference. But you can see that they attracted attendees from around the country. And each of these dots is not just one person. There's a lot of people behind these. So they know that by taking their conferences and keeping them virtual, they are attracting so many more people. And in fact, since 2020, they've been tracking this. And almost half the people that have attended virtual have never attended an in-person conference for women. So this is an audience they never would get if they lost the virtual component. And I should note that they're a paid conference as well. So people are paying to show up and get their content in the virtual scenario. So regardless of how they do it next year, they will not be giving up virtual because it just wouldn't make sense to throw this whole audience out the window. And then just a little more about how people engage. There we go. Just a quick note, for the Pennsylvania conference specifically, almost 60% of the in-person attendees also attended virtually because they had the in-person day and then the virtual day separate. Just a great point that if you have a virtual component, whatever that looks like, you're going to get your in-person people to come back and engage again. So next, let's talk about how the virtual piece can get people talking to each other. Connection and consumption. There's been a lot of talk this last year that, virtual is only good to consume content. People aren't going to connect. I don't believe that to be true at all. And in fact, this is a screenshot from the DES virtual event. It was specifically intended to be a virtual only event. You can see Julia Solaris on the main stage. So many people commented that the chat was on fire. So throughout the day, a full half-day agenda, There was a live chat happening for all the sessions. It wasn't people just saying, hi from California. It was people commenting on the content, sharing information, getting connected. And I saw this same comment in LinkedIn in the days following the event. So the virtual component really did get people connecting and talking. Likewise, we'll go back to the conferences for women. At the Texas conference, almost half the attendees participated in the morning chat and about a third in the afternoon chat at the keynote session. So just pulled out the keynote sessions. Now, again, keep in mind, they had almost 9,000 people on the virtual event. And again, this was not hi from El Paso. It was people truly engaging and adding value in the content and sharing the content while they were viewing it. So really, really impressive numbers about folks using a virtual platform to drive real connection. They also had, across the 3 events that happened in the fall, almost 2,000 meetings were booked in the platform to be held the following week after the virtual event. So again, with intention, giving people a good reason why they should be having a meeting and getting connected, it absolutely works if that's part of your program and overall goals. Okay, but let's face it, multiple modalities can have a lot of complexity. So it's not that it's simple to do. I think all know this. For Conference for Women, because they had 2 entirely different agendas, they had 2 distinct but somewhat connected project plans. Because they did their in-person event first and then their virtual event, they had to create a war room. So they were doing an event like this, and everybody was on site, and then the very next day, they all stayed. They went into a conference room, stayed there all day to conduct the virtual event. It wasn't especially easy. It was successful because they had a ton of connection and people really value their content in the community, but it does have a lot of complexity. ADAN, another example, because they did it synchronously, they of course had the addition of the on-site streaming, and they had to have duplicate staffing. So from their own company and from their sponsors, they had to have multiple staff involved. So of course, your complexity can be managed if you have the right process, the right partner, and the right timing. So we can't always control timing, but if you're going to do multiple modalities, get as much time as you possibly can in your project plan. It makes all the difference in the world. And then, of course, another lesson learned, right? It can be costly. So some of the things that can drive the cost, contracting with 2 venues. I've got to contract this physical conference venue, and I have to go contract with a virtual conference venue. Of course, I have to pay for on-site production as well, and I might need to hire more speakers and more staff. Conference for Women, again, they had unique speakers that they paid for in both scenarios. That can be costly, but the cost shouldn't stop you, meaning I know we're all going to have finite budget, but there are ways that you can think about stretching your budget, getting creative, having good partners. I know Perform Media, they're the ones that are filming us right now. They're going to talk a little bit later about some really interesting ways to use technology to keep the cost down. And what I would say is, whether you like virtual or not, I am a huge believer if you are going to have content, you're going to create content at an in-person event, if you don't pay for some sort of on-site production to, at a very minimum, record your content, you're losing out. I saw something, I think it was Julia Solaris again, posted about looking at, I think it was 500 event sites, and the number of event sites that did not charge people for access to the on-demand content was surprising. So if you're going to capture it, monetize it, use it again and again. And that's a great way to manage that inclusivity. If you really want to focus on your in-person event, but you know you want to provide reach to all those folks who found you online, at a minimum record, make that available, and then, hey, get crazy. Add some fun networking and other live components around it. There's so many possibilities. So my next lesson, my last one, event professionals, all of you, you have power. And as we know from Superman, with power comes great responsibility. So I really want everybody to encourage you to really think about how you're using the different modalities. How are you using in-person? How are you adding virtual? How are you mixing them together? Make audience first decisions. Always, 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 always. You have your goals for your association, for your company, for your clients. But if you're making every decision from the point of view of the audience, That's going to make all the difference. And of course, meet them where they are. I'll say that again and again, and spend accordingly. If you know that your audience has really gotten excited about engaging with you often, maybe you're going to spend a little bit more to think about a virtual or a hybrid strategy over time. That said, maybe you find in person is what it's all about. So spend accordingly if you're meeting your audience where they are. Finally, don't settle. Don't settle for poor platforms. We've all been on a ton of really, really boring virtual events in the last 2 to 3 years. Don't settle for that. Don't settle for that with your speakers. Don't settle for it with your platform. Don't settle for it on any level. You have the power to create amazing events in person and virtually. And finally, keep it moving forward. Get creative. Who knows what's next? Conference for Women, I will say they had a great experience this year with their in-person and virtual. They're not giving up virtual or Conference Anywhere. It may not look the same. So keep iterating, keep trying new things, and we're going to keep creating awesome events together. So with that, thank you so much. I am happy to answer questions. But thanks for your time.
Did you see any difference with
Thanks.
Did you see any difference with the women's conference hosting their virtual directly after the in-person? Or, I know a lot of companies are doing it maybe the week or the month later. Like, have you experienced any, which one's better? Any feedback?
It's a great question, because they specifically did it immediately afterwards. I don't have from them kind of what it looks like doing it later. I think there's a variety of ways that can be effective. So doing it immediately afterwards, I was impressed when I saw how many people attended in person and then came for the next day, right? That surprised me, because I think a lot of times it's hard to take 2 days off. If you push that out a little bit further, you can get really creative in terms of having other ways or giving people other reasons why they should show up. You also give them time to invite other people, whether it's more from their organization or from their social networks. So there can be some really big advantages depending on your goals to push it out a week, 2 weeks, or even a month. Absolutely. Oh!
Sorry, I had more of a comment than anything. There's a lot of FOMO with the Massachusetts Women's Convention because it's sold out pre-COVID every year. So I think that they had a lot of success there with offering the secondary the Conference Anywhere. I know, like myself, I couldn't get into the in-person one, but I was able to get onto the secondary one.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear you joined it. Yeah, it was a great event, and definitely a lot of FOMO. Cool. Yes. Oh.
So in terms of being able to show an ROI to sponsors and exhibitors in the virtual space versus the in-person space, what have you found that really works well to show that ROI?
So the beauty of virtual, right, is we can count everything. So I'll speak to our platform specifically. So I think it's really important to make sure that you know with your sponsor, is it thought leadership they want? So if that's it, if it's just awareness they want, then you can construct the platform to show that. If they're really looking for connections, then you have to, again, you can count from an ROI perspective, how many people showed up for your session? How long did they stay? How many people downloaded things in your booth? So for me, it's really about defining with your sponsor, what are their goals, and then crafting their platform around that so that you have the numbers to back that up afterwards. I think a lot of people have a tendency to, it's getting better, but especially in the beginning of COVID, had a tendency to try to create virtual sponsor packages that mimicked the in-person. And I don't recommend doing that. I know Sean and I've had a great conversation about sponsor packages, and Sean's got a ton of great advice. Again, think about what they want first, then go craft your packages. It's like have that big menu that you can pull from, but the more you make each sponsor unique, the more they're going to see ROI because they bought into it before anything ever started. Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a great show.